Welcome, everybody. How is it going, Joel? How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. It's not quite day, it's evening, but hey, who's counting? It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
How was your day then?
A lot of grinding, a lot of work.
Yeah.
The effort to push crypto forward never ends, especially if you're trying to do something that's not just a lame pump and dump and try to get something that actually solves real world problems.
Nah, that's no
So yeah.
fun.
Oh, well, no fun, but it's like, taking out the garbage. You got to do it or everything starts to smell.
Very true, very true. So, yeah, you want to give a quick little intro to yourself and what you kind of do in the crypto space?
Yes. So my name is Joel Valenzuela. That's not Venezuela. That's a country. I've already had someone commenting on that. And I work for Dash, which is a decentralized cryptocurrency, one of the OGs. Uh, Dash is a portmanteau for digital cash. So especially people who are familiar with the Bitcoin white paper and actually give a crap about what it means will surely be in on that. I've always been a big Liberty lover and pro precious metals guy. In fact, where I guess still got that and the Fed silver round on my desk to remind me what it's all about.
All right.
And 2013, I decided to move to a magical place called New Hampshire for something called the Free State Project, which is basically let's throw all the people who love freedom right in one spot and just see what happens.
Mhm.
And in that journey, I heard about this thing called Bitcoin. And, I'm a little skeptical at first, just like, what is this? And then I try it out. I buy pizza and someone pays for their bit in Bitcoin. And after sending it back and forth a couple times, I'm like, this is going to change the world. Just now I know it's something solid, it's something decentralized. It's crazy. So I started to live off of Bitcoin as much as I could. Late 2015, I decided, you know what? I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to stop accepting fiat. No job that pays me in fiat, I'm not going to take it. Only all crypto. And then early 2016, I closed my bank account. Had some problems with that, and I decided not to reopen an account. Just said, hey, they say be your own bank. Well, let me find out. So I was living all off of Bitcoin until late that year when the blocks started to fill up. It was a personal hardship for me, and I decided, hey, I got to either abandon this experiment or try to find a way to make it work. And so I just decided to find a way to make it work. So I went down the market cap listings, look at the next one I could stop at that I could possibly live off of. And, Litecoin was abandoned by that at that point. Bitcoin Cash was like a year away from existing, and Dash was the only thing I could conceivably live off of at the time. So I did it, started working and being paid by a few odd jobs in Dash, and finally, me and my couple buddies put up a proposal to the Dash network to do some kind of outreach work. And yeah, we've been working for Dash ever since, the decentralized autonomous organization, and it's exhilarating, I would say, a little bit hectic sometimes, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Mhm. Gotcha. So you said like you basically switched in like 2016, early 2017 then?
Yeah, late
Yeah.
2016.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of when I first started noticing blocks filling up too, and just fees going up, just being like a normal user at the time, and so yeah, I mean, yes, Dash is. I mean, you talk about peer-to-peer cash, and obviously my audience is mostly Bitcoin Cash people. You could say some of us are Bitcoin Cash maximalists, but the whole like maximalist persona has kind of been taken over by the BTCers. But I think really the people in BCH are just people that want crypto to succeed in like everyday life and using it wherever instead of fiat. I it just astonishes me when I talk to some BTC people today. They're like, "Oh, fiat works just fine. I can use my Visa wherever," and it's just like, what's the like? Why are you even in crypto? They're like, why even in crypto if you enjoy like spending your fiat everywhere and you think that's not a problem? And like, do I really have to like explain to you why crypto is better? Like, it's like they've gone backwards
Yeah,
completely. It's like a whole like circular logic thing, and just for hodling now. But
yeah. Makes me
obviously,
think of a "this is fine" meme
yeah.
because at some point along the way, and of course we all know the Blockstream conspiracy theory, which might not be that much of a conspiracy theory, but at somewhere along the way, it became that there's this given that we can use this, but we cannot we can't increase the block size. It just can't be done. We can't do it for decentralization, hand waving, something like that. And so at that point, you just got to live with what you're left with. And so people who are used to spending at least, the fees aren't that bad. You can still buy stuff. And then it evolved to, oh, what, coffee? Nah, you don't need coffee. You could just buy like a larger item. And then eventually it's just like, no, just use fiat. And this is the hodl thing. And it's like it's a logical progression of, well, it still works for this. It still works for this. Let's just do that. And somehow we can't have it used for everything because that would be madness. Imagine the block size. Crush us all under its weight like Atlas holding up the world.
Sounds horrible. Anyways, I'm going to switch to the desktop. I'm going to do my Bitcoin Cash shill here real quick. The new blockchain BCH-based video game, it's a mobile game, is getting ready to launch, and there's just some new screenshots. It's looks like a RPG side simplistic looking thing, but it looks like it's there. It looks pretty cool. Looks really neat. So again, this is a Bitcoin Cash based game where the items that you craft goes onto the BCH chain as a non-fungible token. But yeah, it looks like they're getting ready to launch here in the next couple weeks. So it should be cool. Should be cool to see if this actually takes off, and hopefully they kind of prioritize gameplay over blockchain dynamics, if anything. So yeah, I posted our show here, and okay, where did it go? And you had a hater real quick. So he said, ask him about some of these things, about basically the Dash pre-mine. And so do you kind of want to summarize what he's talking about and the rebuttal and maybe the sides from both sides? Because I have heard of it before, and I'll be honest, I'm not too educated on what this actually means and what actually happens.
Yeah. It's one of those things that no one really needs to care about in 2017, 18, or 19. It's one of those if you're a crypto historian. So basically there's this. So Bitcoin, was the first of its kind. Litecoin was one of the first. I would argue it's the first shitcoin, but that's for a different discussion. It's the first. Just let's kind of copy the thing and do what it does. And so Litecoin, of course, fiddled with a few things, like, for example, the mining algorithm and the coin supply and stuff. Litecoin had a massive, well, not massive, but a significant, what they would call, what the term today is fast mine in the beginning, to where a whole bunch of coins were spit out way quicker than had been anticipated or would have been otherwise scheduled by. It's impossible to know. Was it malicious? Was it a bug in the code? Who knows? Probably a bug. And that kind of stuff gets swept under the rug until last month or so. It went all over Twitter, and all of a sudden everyone was dumping on Charlie Lee and saying, oh, you misled us and all that nonsense. So that was 2011, I believe. 2014, a little known coin called Xcoin was born, which was essentially at its start, hey, let's try the X11 mining algorithm out and a few other little things, and just let's create another shitcoin. Everyone's doing it. So you get this thing created, unfortunately forked from the Litecoin code base, which a lot of people don't realize was pretty much abandoned in 2014. Charlie Lee didn't pay attention until 2017 again. And it turns out that the bug is still there, and it was amplified in this new thing, and a whole bunch of coins were created over the first couple days. And by the time the thing was fixed, there was a whole bunch out there, and there we go. That's kind of the long and short of it, or the short of it. Now, this would just be another footnote in crypto history, sort of like with Litecoin. No one really paid attention to that first emission. Sort of like with Monero, which had a miner that was released, and for a few weeks later, there were people mining on an optimized miner significantly faster, and there's some back and forth on, was that intentional? Is the cripple mine like an actual scandal, or was it just there was a mistake? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of these kinds of things, but a lot of people was specifically the Monero community in the beginning started to try to use this as an attack vector, because everyone's competing against everyone, and started making a big deal out of it. So that's kind of the long and short of it.
Gotcha. So yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, 10 to 15%. Like, it wasn't an actual pre-mine or insta-mine. It just happened really fast. Like, perhaps the difficulty was too low, and yeah, maybe just some opportunistic miners or something came in. But yeah, and like you said, it seems like it's not really like a. I mean, if anybody's concerned, it's about distribution, right? Which is like,
Yeah.
and then like that's not really like a problem with the actual like technology or anything, but
yeah, of course, distribution is always a little bit of a thing you got to pay attention to. And Dash has a really good distribution. Depending on which metrics you use, it might be better than BTC's. And part of this is because I would say so many coins get dumped out in the beginning, and then they end up getting just sold because they're kind of worthless, at that point.
Yeah.
On all the markets, and then just get scattered to the wind. But it's pretty solidly distributed. It does make me think it is kind of funny because a lot of these same people are big fans of, for example, Decred, which had a literal pre-mine where the, not hidden or anything. This is not like a evil secret on their part, but they literally was it 8% of the eventual supply was created under sole control of the founding team, and I guess that's okay. But some like crazy nonsense in the beginning during the old Xcoin days isn't. But anyway, that's just what that was. Some guy who apparently but I don't, just decided to lose his lunchbox over this. So it happens sometimes, and it's entertaining when it does. It's like, oh, there we go again. We got another one.
Got another, such as crypto Twitter, right?
Yep.
All right, so I got to ask about this. There was false reporting or something coming from your Venezuelan, some people in Venezuela about like Dash acceptance in Venezuela. So I was just, could you kind of give me your take on what happened with this false reporting from Venezuela?
Yeah, it depends on what exactly. I have not read most of like the FUD articles. I'm pretty familiar with the situation. In my view, from where I've been standing, there has not been any false reporting. Or if there has been, there's been a few like, oh yeah, my cousin, he says he has a business, and then he just has it for a week and then closes up shop and things like that. Now, for reference, do you use any of the Bitcoin Cash map merchant maps?
I know which ones you're talking about. There's Marco Coino, and then there's one other new one that I can't think of the exact name, but I know what you're referencing. Yes.
Yeah. So for anyone watching who wants to a little experiment, and this is one of the most first world parts of the world there is. If you go over Portsmouth, New Hampshire, just like north between, let's say, right in between Boston and Portland, Maine, you'll see there's like 14 merchants listed there.
For Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm using this example because they're still up there. The bad listings are still up there with Discover Dash, which is the Dash one. And most of them have been removed, or if not, let me know, and they remove right away. If you look over there, it has 14 Bitcoin Cash accepting businesses there. Now, 9 of those 14 listings are incorrect. They don't exist. Now, that doesn't mean that anything is sketchy, because I can attest, because that's very close to where I live, and I have been to every single one of those things that doesn't exist now. And this was over the last year. A year ago, all those 14 were accurate, but over the course of a single year, a couple businesses stopped taking it. One changed ownership, a few closed down, a few moved, and it's just because of that. Now 9 out of the 14 aren't correct anymore. Now, 9 out of 14 is what, like 2/3 or so. Now, if you take a country like Venezuela, say you have 3,000 merchants there that take Dash. Let's just throw a ballpark figure out it. And again, with a decentralized system, it's really hard to get an actual number. Yeah. You just go by the ones you actually know.
Right.
So you got 3,000 merchants. Now, say 2,000 of them over the course of a year by the same attrition, who knows? But also, you got to consider, like, I know a couple of these merchants, at least one I heard from people who knew him, actually got murdered over someone stealing his smartphone. And so it's a very turbulent country. And I wouldn't. I mean, can you imagine trying to run a business in that country?
No,
Trying to
not at
keep it up. Rolling blackouts where you can't even access stuff, and also if you ever go to a crypto accepting business anywhere, let's be honest, even in the modern day, with all the adoption efforts all of us and all our communities have done, there's still very few people that use it. Very small percentage of transactions at any merchant, except for very special, like the one in the town with a big group that goes out to lunch and pays in Bitcoin Cash every day or whatever. And with the exception of those, they're almost all very low level in terms of like how much traffic they get. So odds are, if you go to one of these places, they haven't seen a crypto customer in a month. It's not too bad. But it's a new employee they don't know. Oh, I don't know. It's the owner. He knows it.
Mm-hmm.
And even the one that gets daily transactions for Dash in Portsmouth there, every once in a while when I go to get my coffee there, they don't know how to do it because it's a new hire. And thankfully, there's always been another person there who shows how to do it. So, of course, there's been a few things like, well, I went to like 10 merchants and like 5 of them said, oh, the owner has the smartphone and he's not here right now. Or, oh, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always the low-level employee thing of, no, we don't do that. We're just to get you to go away because it's too much of a hassle. I'm sure we've all had to deal with that. So yes, rumors have been highly exaggerated. For that very reason, a bunch of us have taken to documenting this as much as possible. And there's on the Dash News YouTube channel, which, shameless self-promotion here, but whatever. There's a list of videos where we actually have one of our employees who lives there, who goes to these merchants and she takes videos doing the purchases with Dash as a kind of like way of recording everything. Proof, what is it? Proof of purchase, proof of work, proof of it works.
Right. Yeah, proof of it works.
So, yes, that's kind of long-winded explanation to that whole thing. But, I'm sure if you go to anywhere in Australia and Tokyo and stuff, and you wanted to find ways of discrediting all the adoption there, which I'm speaking of something I don't know anything about. I've seen rumors, I've seen markers, I've not been there, so I don't know. But if I was a complete jerk and wanted to go there and just embarrass as many people as possible, I'm sure I could find a way of like showing up on a day when this, or like, oh, this one isn't moved, and then call all lies and scam and stuff. And I'm sure that would ruin someone's day and really not help the world out that much.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, like the other like scandal part of this was apparently like they embezzled some salaries in it too. But that's kind of ties into, so like obviously basically in Bitcoin Cash you have this funding problem, right? Nobody knows how to fund devs or projects or anything. So basically you just rely on the large hodlers to pay somebody to do some stuff for them in hopes of their investment going up. But yeah, in Dash you obviously have this incentive thing where basically there's a amount set aside in the protocol for projects to happen, and it's this weird thing, which is like kind of like the main difference, just like from a high level perspective, is like, I know you like vote, like masternode operators vote on it, but like how many, like what percentage goes towards like projects that actually help? What percentage goes towards like people that piss off the money and don't do anything? Or what percentage are like scams? Like like I'm guessing this is like a thing you get a lot. But yeah, if you kind of wanted to like how do people, how's the accountability of this all in such a system?
So you want to know how many times I've scammed the network?
Yeah, how many times? How much money have you embezzled?
No, I have not. And this is where, as any good free market person knows, if you have a legal system, like a government system, when you start introducing complexity into the law, into regulations, you start to stifle innovation, and it ends up not being good. So Dash's system is really simple. If you can run a masternode if you prove you own 1,000 units of Dash. Now, how many people are behind that 1,000 units of Dash? Who knows? Can you own a bunch of them yourself? Yeah. So that's, again, protocol doesn't see that. That's a masternode. There's around 5,000 of them right now. And if anyone can put up a 5-dash anti-spam fee, which, current prices right somewhere around $400, a little more maybe, and then you could put a proposal before the network. And the only things that are on actually on the network and the protocol are, amount, and sometimes you have like a recurring thing. You can do it like every month for like 3 or 4 months or something, or like a one-off, and the address, and that's just in a title, but that's it. And then some websites kind of grab that information. Then you can log into those sites and put the actual text of like, this is what I want to do, this is who I am, record a little video, hey guys, check me out, I'm awesome, and then do that whole thing. But so it's extremely basic grant-based system that's how it works. And you can vote, and if a net 10%, if you get a net 10% of votes, so like say that would be 500 yes votes and no votes, or 600 yes and 100 no votes. By the time the voting deadline passes, then a couple days later, the new coins created out of that 10% will just go to that address you specify. Just get created from the sky and zip right there. And any budget that's not allocated just won't be created, which is one reason why when people say, well, what's the eventual Dash supply? Kind of like 19 million, but kind of probably closer to 18, because proposal fees being burned, and some months they don't spend all the money. Who knows? It's kind of a little bit flexible there. So that's really it. That's the basis of it. And I mean, originally it was created to fund development. I remember a time when the core team, the Dash core developers, were requesting 80 or 90%. Now they've hard capped themselves at 60%. Some months they haven't even asked for any. And of course, always subject to the rest of the network's approval. Sometimes they get their request shot down. And as far as like, what do you do? Well, first off, you start building a trust system where you start, oh, who is that guy? Have we heard about him before? Do we get a confirmation? Can he sign a thing that says that it's who he says he is? Do we have this? And sometimes, are there other measures you can do? Or sometimes people just say, look, I'm going to do a month's work for free, or I'm going to just do a pilot and then unveil it and then say, hey, if you want me to expand, keep doing this, I'm going to need some money. So there's some things like that. Over time, it's evolved to where it's pretty sophisticated, to where, first off, there's a bunch of established and well-known trusted groups running around that account for a lot of the budget. And so you don't have to deal with vetting newcomers too often, or significant newcomers, that is. Also, there are some actual legal structures in place which are very strange and innovative, that actually let the Dash Decentralized Autonomous Organization legally own property. There's the Dash Trust, which legally owns, say, the social media accounts, the GitHub, the everything. So if the masternodes decide they want to fire the core team, they don't just cut off their money. They can actually legally order them to surrender Dash property and things to a new entity they decide to hire. And there's something very new called the Dash Investment Foundation, which can actually invest in, say, companies and things like that. And then the Dash network can own equity in something. And so, of course, you can't actually distribute dividends back to the masternodes because they're anonymous. They're not identified. They didn't go through KYC. They're just like anonymous entities, voting entities out there. So you have to find other ways, like, for example, reinvesting that money into other things. So because those two legal entities, you can actually say, someone says, oh, I don't trust you. Well, why don't we'll fund you, but you'll have to give, enter into a legal agreement with a legal entity. And there you go. So there is that kind of a thing.
Gotcha.
And I forgot, there's an entity called Dash Watch, which is just an audit kind of organization. They just run around and say, hey, you have these deliverables. Let me see them and let me record them. Let's see how you've been doing. Just kind of tracking performance and metrics and things like that. And that kind of helps. And there's a few independent people who've done the watchdoggery on their own.
Gotcha. Yeah, I did see the Dash thing before. Okay, so let's go a little more technical here. Explain like I'm 25 chain locks and why they are so amazing, because somebody was shilling it the other day in one of my chats, and they're just like, "Oh, this is better than zero conf. It's better than like," they threw out some number of like BTC blocks or something.
Was it Andreas Antonopoulos? Because he was talking pretty well about it before,
was he? I don't know. He blocked me a while ago, so with the whole the Jackness scandal. So
those old days, I remember.
Yeah,
anyway.
last week.
So here, basically, it depends. So we'll start the very high level.
Yeah.
It means you use the master network to make sure you can't attack. You can't 51% attack. It can't be done. All right, that's the most simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can say, well, if you know about proof of stake and proof of work, it's kind of like a proof of stake work hybrid, which, Dash is technically not proof of stake at all, but that's a different thing. Next thing, so if let me just get into the depth, but actually, but from the noob perspective of, all right, so when I send you a transaction, let's just assume full nodes. I got a full node, got my little Casa Hodl or whatever thing that'll trigger your audience, and I use that and I send a, say, Bitcoin transaction, and it gets broadcast to all the other nodes on the network. They see it right away, but it's not permanent until a miner includes it in a block, and that's what you call a confirmation. Mm-hmm. So the miners doing the whole proof of work, running their machines, doing all their stuff, securing the network, will see it included in a block, and then there you go. So generally speaking, they include the first seen block, or the first seen transaction. Yep. So they see a transaction, and as soon as it's seen, whatever the first one that's seen by the whole network is the one that tends to be picked up by a miner. Now, what miners can do is they can be mining on accidentally the wrong chain, and then they end up having to reconcile with the network, or else they'll split and you got a fork. Sometimes that's intentional. I'm looking at you, Craig Wright. Sometimes it's not. And so what happens is, first there was an innovation called Instant Send, or used to be called Instant X way back in the day. Now called Instant Send, which is a manual tick where what you did was, if you Instant Send locked a transaction, a random grouping of master nodes, which are these incentivized full nodes. The reason why you have to have 1,000 units of Dash to prove you own that in order to run a node is to keep the network from being Sybil attacked, i.e. some government spook just spins up a million computers and I am the network, and then they can just go in there. So a group of these masters lock the transaction so you can't double spend it. You can't send it somewhere else before it's actually confirmed. And there's something called instant send block filtering back then, which basically any block that would come through by the miners that had a conflict. So it's like everyone sees a transaction right away, they lock it in, and then someone sends something that conflicts with that, says, nope, we're not accepting any blocks from the chain that does that. And over time, instant send became, now before it was an optional thing that it was very crude, and now it's every single Dash transaction is instant at no extra cost and can be instantly respent after that, which is what they call sometimes chained instant send. That's like the zero conf security type thing. The chain locks mean once you get one confirmation, once you have one block, that block is now locked in, and any other blocks get rejected. It's kind of like what sometimes people call it is it's kind of like a master initiated checkpoint, to use a more modern type language, to where a group of master nodes see the first block, they agree on the first block, and if they agree on the first block, that gets locked in, and then you can't have other blocks. So
to me, it sounds like you should just get rid of proof of work then.
Not really, because proof of work still does its thing. It just gets rid of secret and selfish mining, right? So the first seen block still is the first seen block, which is how crypto works how proof of work works when it's working, when there aren't problems. Now, so for example, you can't use a big quorum of masters to just create new blocks and just decide which ones are valid completely. It's a completely passive and defensive technique. So you need the miners to just generate the blocks. It's just that if someone builds a secret chain, which is what you do when you have selfish mining or, say, chain reorgs or attacks, then that gets invalidated. So it just kind of locks in that first scene block and just makes sure everything's pretty smooth, which does take care of a whole lot of other, not attacks, but little problems like, inefficiencies when you might mine a block or two, and then by the time it reaches the rest of the network, some other miner mined more of them, and then it gets knocked off. So yeah, it's essentially an extra little bit on top. Now, when you go to try to, if, for example, say you manage to compromise the masternode network in some way, which you'd probably have to spend, billions and billions of dollars trying to throw in money to buy up masternodes, or, say you manage to knock a few of them out with like a temporary outage or something like that. I don't know. If you manage to do something like that, the worst that can happen is it just reverts to plain old regular proof of work. It's like a dual consensus, not quite. It's kind of like a dual consensus mechanism. And so basically the only way to attack it to attack the network now would be to own a majority of the hash rate and a majority of all the Dash in existence, which at that point you're kind of are the network and you're kind of just attacking yourself, and you kind of like run the whole, you're not ruining anyone else's party, you are the party,
Gotcha. So I guess, do you think like this dual consensus mechanism, say Bitcoin, just as general as a concept, without full blocks, do you find this like dual consensus mechanism like superior to just like the straight proof of work on Bitcoin?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, first off, it makes the network more efficient by dealing with these other minor, pun intended, inefficiencies. But also makes it secure beyond what a huge hash rate would give. Now, Andreas Antonopoulos was talking about this, and he's talking pretty highly. I mean, mostly just describing it and how it works, but he's also talking highly. And he just said that it's basically needed if you don't have a very large hash rate. And he said it's not needed in Bitcoin BTC because it has a large hash rate, which is kind of like saying, I don't need to lock my front door because I live in a secure enough gated community. Like, yeah, I guess, but what happens if something happens and then they just run right into your house? It's like, it's still good for even a major network. What I'd be really terrified of is something like any of the major Bitcoin forks, because at some point, all you have to do is have the major BTC miners, or at least one, decide that it's worth their while to completely wreck one of these smaller chains, and they can just do it. It's just possible today. It's not likely because most miners just want to mine to make money.
Yeah, bro, we got the Hoover Dam.
Yeah. So basically, it would, it's unlikely, but it's still extremely possible, and that always kind of freaks me out. And especially if you're not the king of your own algorithm, have a bunch of dedicated mining hardware, and which makes it harder. But who knows what happens if someone, like, for example, how much of the mining power is in China? What happens if the Chinese government decides to take over the pools and just point them to attack the network? And obviously with BTC that might cause a lot of havoc, but not be a permanent, and it might not be the one thing. But if you get to just about anything else, all of a sudden you can have a major problem pretty quickly. And it's hard when you have, like, potentially someday trillions of dollars worth on this network, people's livelihoods, their savings. In my case, where I live 100% off crypto, it's not like, oh, I got rid of my little fun money on the side there. It's like, no, it's some serious business. So I would say every single proof of work network should explore some kind of thing. I've heard something about Avalanche and some things like that. It seems, we'll see. I like to see it tested out. I like to see how it works out. It seems interesting. It seems like it might be just like the best chain locks you can get without actually having masternodes.
Right. Yeah. I was kind of thinking that too. I mean, yeah, Avalanche, I mean, I'm sure you looked at it a little bit, and I've seen, if there's going to be another fork in Bitcoin Cash, it's going to be over Avalanche. Is all I can say about that. Because a lot of the miners just think it takes the power away from them, and kind of gives it to the nodes a little bit. So Yeah, that'll be interesting to see as it comes out. I think the actual Avalanche coin isn't quite out yet, but I know that's coming soon to launch. They're trying to do like the most fair release in history, whatever. But
Yeah,
we'll see about that, I guess.
that's rough. I mean, it's about like fair releases. Like the fairest release people usually say is BTC because
Just been
no one
around.
knew enough to try to game it. But
Right.
then still, Satoshi ended up with a giant pile of coins. Which is that fair? Who knows? Who cares? As long as it's well distributed. It is funny to see some of these like harping over fair distributions. As long as you don't have like one party controlling everything, or you're probably going to be fine. As long as there's economic incentives to actually spend, use this stuff, they're going to get scattered to the winds. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Using it. So I kind of wanted to circle back here to the Free State project a little bit. So.
Oh yeah.
What the heck is it? Isn't like Roger involved in this too?
Roger Ver.
Yeah.
He told me that if New Hampshire seceded, he would move here immediately. And some people are quite into that. And I think that that's a fantastic idea, but it's an idea for the foreseeable future. We'll see how things happen. So basically, the idea was Jason Sorens, who was a graduate student at the time and recently a lecturer at Dartmouth and now has a gig at St. Anselm University. He had this paper that basically just said, well, we don't get any freedom related stuff passed legislatively because there's just too few of us. There's just not enough people who care about freedom. And there's enough, but just not in one spot. So what if we just took all of the freedom loving people that we can find and just moved them all to one spot so they could concentrate their efforts and actually just make a difference? Which, if you think about, if you say it out loud in the vernacular like that, it kind of sounds like he was like really high, but it sounds like the ultimate stoner idea of like, dude, what if we just put all the free people here and all the freedom? But he actually did come up with some computations, et cetera, to figure out how this would work. So the original idea being, I guess, vote related, in that if everyone's here and they all just are active voters and stuff, good stuff starts to get passed, and active activists. It ended up being a more loosely defined project where people just move. If you believe that the maximum role of government, if you want government at all, of course, there's tons of anarchists too. If you believe that the maximum role of government should be protecting liberty and property and life, I guess, then you just pledge to move and become active, and that's it. Just do your best to make that happen in whatever way you see fit. So a lot of people have gotten into politics, and there's dozens of free staters in the state legislature, which part of that's because there's 400 state legislators. It's like a ton of people for a small state.
Uh-huh.
And I remember very recently a whole bunch of them were giving speeches on the House floor ending with "and taxation is theft," which for government officials to be saying that, is pretty fun and exciting. And there's a big crypto community, and I mean, if you just look at some of the stuff that's come out there, I could only live off of crypto pretty much here. There might be another couple places today, but back in the day, no.
Mm-hmm.
I buy everything crypto. So that's become a big thing.
So what's the end goal? Is to just like literally secede?
Well, the end goal is to advance freedom. If you want to live, first off, you move to the freest state that's out there. And once you're there, first off, that's already good. But second, you can get more freedom in more ways. So there have been a handful of crypto-friendly bills that have been passed. For example, your idea of freedom is to live away from the fiat currency scheme, then, hey, guess what? You can do that. That's a way of living free and advancing that. If you want to, practice carrying firearms wherever you're at, no one's going to give you a problem. It's a complete constitutional carry state. And you can do just basically whatever you want. A whole lot of people are big into this agorism thing, which is basically counter economic, basically gray market activity, where you just sell your farm produce, your crafts, your services, just like peer to peer, not without registering a legal business and opening up a big old storefront, and just kind of like transacting outside of government purview. And there's definitely a big scene for that there. And of course, that's always going to be a minority of total economic activity. But hey, there's basically lots of ways that people who are really excited about freedom can live in their freest way and also push the world around them to become more free. I mean, hey, I bought that Doge pillow behind me with cryptocurrency.
Very nice.
And I'm pretty sure that didn't end up on any return. No one paid capital gains on the pillow or something. I don't know. I can't be sure.
Pay capital gains on the Doge pillow. Yeah. Capital gains. Yeah. That's the one thing that's like, oh, you want to use your crypto for everything? Well, you better report everything. Maybe I'll round it.
Yeah, that's one of those things. It's always depends on who you talk to. It can be a touchy subject.
Yeah.
As far as the annoyance of the law itself, it's first off, if everything's automated, and there are some services and things that do that. For example, a company I know called Node 40 allows you to like put in your basically just give them your XPub key, and then you just for all your wallets, and then they just do all the calculations. Say, all right, this is what you got to file, and they just do all of it for you. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of wallets that will do all the calculations automatically, so no one has to worry about the nightmare. But more importantly, you don't have to pay capital gains if you could go on a crazy bender in Europe like 10 years ago, and then the euro appreciates against the dollar for some reason.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you have more. Like it's because it's not significant enough. And once that crazy volatility, that crazy moon Lambo nonsense, once that kind of evens out and it just becomes a pretty stable store of value that kind of goes up over time against the dollar, but not significantly, then you're going to just probably see the law change to where it's not, capital gains, or you don't really have enough capital gains to report to begin with. But as far as the rest of it, like, I believe in a free technology for a free world. I believe that freedom is choice. You have the choice to do what you want. And what I love about cryptocurrency is compliance is a choice. Now, a practical choice, maybe not, because a lot of people, if they buy a whole bunch off an exchange and they're just like, my coins, then eventually they're going to have some goon kicking down their door and beating them over the head with a stick. But it's choice. It's out there. Someone doesn't just snap their fingers and take everything you own because you said something weird. It's a move towards a voluntary world, which I think is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, definitely. The whole liberty, and don't have people telling you not to spend your crypto. Did you kind of want to talk about the Bitcoin maximalist theory at all, and how hodling is apparently going to make store of value comes before medium of exchange, I guess, in their worldview. I mean, you obviously you're like 100% crypto. You obviously don't find many people like that all the time, and you've interacted with all the coins, and I mean, I guess outside of speculation, how does something gain value if not getting used, right? That just seems like the logical thing.
That's the thing where the free market makes things a little interesting, because no one knows exactly what happens. No one can give an objective value for something. All value is belief, right? It's all subjective to a certain extent. So say this is an old dark coin poker chip that of course I bought with Dash back in the day and just keep it around. So what if I just start making a bunch of these and just say, hey, this is money, this has value. No one cares. Until someone, for whatever reason, says, you know what? I think this is worth parting with my value, my hard work, my traded services and goods, or my other medium of exchange that I have. It's worth doing it because I ascribe value to this, then this has value. And a store of value, it's kind of weird to say a store of value, because it's like anything that keeps its value has value. I mean, like if you buy a car, that's a store of value, except it's not a very good one. I mean, it starts depreciating all the time, and it does other things too. This Doge pillow might be a great store of value because they keep on selling out. I got one of the last ones. They were selling at the Free State Bitcoin shop, and so it might be more valuable than when I got it, which is it's much wow. Yes, definitely much wow.
Go all in on Doge pillows.
Yeah, so that could be a store of value. Essentially, when you're talking about a pure store of value without outside utility. So, for example, let's just say these shades here. Let's just say these have actual utility of some kind.
Yeah,
they
like you
kind of
like you can see through them.
I can see, but I can't really.
I mean,
they're not that.
It might be less strain on the eyes if you're looking at the computer all day.
Yeah, I think it just makes you look like I'm a fly or something from the inside. It's not that practical. So if I have these things, I mean, it's purely cosmetic value. But what if every time I wear these, my interview appearances or whatever have like a 10 times or like double their view counts because people are just like, dude, he has the Dashy glasses on. Better watch this. If it actually does something for me, people are going to be like, wow, those glasses actually work. I might need to get me a pair. And then they buy it, and their life is more successful in other ways because of that. That's utility, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, utility. Now, what does a store of value have outside of utility? I mean, are they having trouble storing their value elsewhere? Like, for example, can you not buy precious metals? Right. Is it too hard to access? Is it too hard to store? Is it too easy to rob your house and just take your whole stash of gold from you? Maybe that's the utility behind storing your value in that way. Mm-hmm. Is it less falsifiable? I mean, that kind of stuff does have some base utility. Right. But how much store value do people need in the first world beyond beyond cash and precious metals? Mm-hmm. They don't really need it that much. Other countries, they probably want dollars because they can actually use them, but that stores their value. Now, when you're talking about, well, because the price is going to go up. So the only reason price goes up is because people are willing to buy it higher than the current price. And the only reason they do that is they'd probably expect it to be higher at some point. So if you're doing something like that, you need new buyers to support your price. If you have new buyers to support the price, and that's what makes you rich, and they'll need new buyers, that is what they call a pyramid scheme. And there is always elements to a pyramid scheme in anything that people buy into, literally. So if I was saying, hey, I want my Dash to go up, I'm going to tell you to buy some, and you buy some, more people buy some, I get richer, you guys get screwed. Like, no, that's no good. So where utility comes in is I'm going to buy this because it profits me whether or not the price goes up. Because with this secret dark coin poker chip, I can get into this super special club that no one else can get in because they only accept this. And by getting in there, I get to be a cool person. And more importantly, I get to experience a great networking environment that's great for my own career, let's say. Make up a bunch of stuff. Then I'm willing to, if these are going for $1, and my buddy has, these for $1.50, that's a lot more money. But if I think I can make enough utility out of it to overcompensate the increased price, sure, I'll go buy them. Mm-hmm. And that's what drives up the price in an organic, sustainable way, and not just a pyramid scheme type thing. Right. So that's the problem with that narrative. Now, I don't think that the BTC maximalists, when they're talking about the store of value, it's just a store of value. First off, I personally think that's complete garbage just to make excuses for why their shit doesn't work. Yeah. But beyond that, what they don't realize is the reason it stores value is because BTC has a whole lot of utility that other coins don't. All the liquidity. For example, I knew someone who's trying to send remittances to Zimbabwe by buying Dash, sending it across borders, just instant and like almost no fee, and then selling it for Zimbabwean dollars or US dollars or whatever at the end point. But because of that, because of the relatively low amount of Dash liquidity on the market, because most of it is being hodled in masternodes, or a slight majority of it, then it moved the price, so it became inefficient to use. Now, BTC, despite having higher transaction fees, was actually cheaper to send a large remittance because of all that liquidity and stuff. That is utility, right? That's something that only BTC has right now, is in the crypto space, is utility from lots of liquidity, lots of on and off ramps, lots of everyone, like no one is familiar with only a different coin's code base as far as services for the most part. Other than a couple specialized things, everyone knows Bitcoin. Everyone knows how to integrate it. And then they know how to do a couple of tweaks to add the other ones. No one's like, well, you know what? My business, I only run on like Litecoin, but I guess I can integrate Bitcoin. I guess I'll have to go look into that. No one does that. It's all Bitcoin and down. So there's utility in that universal kind of thing.
Yeah,
and I mean, so the only reason,
it's funny that utility is just like, it's not specific to like the technology though. Like it's totally something that could just like flip like that. I mean, over like, I mean, a year, who knows, however, but like, it's like, how does if it has nothing to do with the tech. It's just like, it's the network effect. It's the incumbent crypto, and nothing special about it besides the name and ticker. Yeah,
of course. Now, one thing that was really important technologically is, first off, the base, just the base of how it works, how the decentralized system works, how mining works, proof of work, all that thing. It's tried and true, and it works. So not better than something like Bitcoin Cash, which is almost identical, but similar. And a lot of that, for example, like the network proof of work security, works with people in it. Throw people and money and infrastructure, and it's stronger. The technology works stronger if you have more. And so it has that. What it also has is a very well reviewed and refined code base. So after Dash was based off of Litecoin, and then Litecoin turned out to be, Litecoin, it was rebased off of Bitcoin code base. And so to this day, every Dash release, there are some kinds of Bitcoin backports that go back to, Bitcoin and kind of copy. Of course, you can't copy paste the whole thing because there's things like replace by fee, SegWit, and a bunch of other weird nonsense. It's like, yeah, we'll pull the good pieces, like the optimizations, the bug fixes. We'll pull those out, but like make sure they work with this like not garbage approach to stuff. And over time, I mean, the day might come soon when Dash cannot be based on Bitcoin anymore because it's diverged too much. But yeah, so long story short, that's when they're saying store of value, that's complete nonsense, because everything they're talking about that allows BTC to store its value is all actual utility provided. And all you have to do is have just as many developers on just as many things on some other coin, and more fiat on-off ramps and things like that. And then all of a sudden, this won't scale coin is going to be a terrible store of value once the competition catches up.
Yeah. What's up, Doge Masters? I am reading chat. He says, invest in Dogecoin. Yes. I think we've established that. Invest in Spice Coin. Spice is the new Doge.
One of my neighbors, during like the 2017 pump, he said he had enough Dogecoin. He kind of left it for a while and he didn't pay attention, but then had this random pump in 2017. He says, I have enough to buy a house with now. So that's the random Dogecoin fact. And yes, he has one of those too.
I hope he has a couple in his house.
Literally at least a few.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, let's see here. What else? I think let's see. It's the general gist of everything that I did want to cover. Yeah, so, I mean, how do you see Dash in the future? Just keeping running that adoption efforts. Yeah, it's like, it's funny how, like, Bitcoin Cash and Dash are, like, kind of, like, we don't, like, hate each other, like, at all. Like, yeah, it's like, it's like friendly competition, but, like, you have, like, the BTC maximalists who just, like, hate everybody.
Yeah.
And then everybody else.
It's a very smart move if you think about it, because anything that can do what Bitcoin does, but other things too, if it gets any traction, it will completely murder their store of value. So it makes sense.
That's true. We're supposed to high five real quick. We got the high five. So let me go on top. I guess I'm on top. So this way.
Nope, it's the other way.
Other way. Nice.
Jellyfish.
There you go.
Yeah. So where do I see stuff go in the future?
Yeah.
Well,
I know it's
basically,
impossible to predict, but
yeah, it's things like that are impossible to sort of they're impossible to predict. But one thing's for sure, I do think that peer-to-peer electronic cash, that a digital currency that no one really controls, is huge, and no one's freaking using it. Like, I'm serious. All the cryptocurrency transactions together that are actually payments for things are extremely negligible. And it's it's growing all the time, and there's plenty of information. I mean, BTC is kind of stagnant, but all the other coins, especially the payment coins, kind of excluding Litecoin, but hey, that doesn't surprise anyone, are trending upwards in transactions over the time. So basically, there is a hot demand for something like this, and people just have not found a compelling way to make it work and make it accessible to people and all that other stuff. So peer-to-peer digital cash will win in the end. Now, is that which chain is that going to be? I don't think it really matters. And as the only reason I'm on Dash is because I think it has the best chance of succeeding, and that's what Rogers always told me about Bitcoin Cash. He thinks it has the best chance of being the one that makes it through. So you work until the facts change, and hopefully they don't. If for the sake of your own life simplicity of like not having to be like, yeah, I like the other one now. But I think that we have a giant problem with making crypto usable. Have you ever used hand cash?
the SV.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I have.
Have you used it when it was BCH?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's when I got rid of it. Was when it went to the dark side, and I just I don't want to have. I have like $20 in BCH lying around. I can use it, but the other one, Yeah. So something like that is extremely useful, which is why the upcoming Dash platform that's supposedly going to be in testnet in a couple months here is going to have blockchain usernames that allow you to just get rid of the copy and pasting thing. I was presenting in front of some venture capital firm a few months ago, and I was showing them Dash transactions. They didn't quite get it, but then I showed them Dash text, which is an SMS-based Dash wallet where just here, text me your number, text me and just say, send this much Dash. And then they got it because it's familiar to them.
Right.
Something has to be extremely useful. It's going to be easy to use. There has to be some good fiat on-ramps for people to buy some. And you have to kind of figure out all like the merchant architecture for people to take it. That's just a very baseline that no one is really at. And I think Dash is making some serious progress in addressing those things, but we're still not there yet. But more importantly, you need to laser target actual use cases. And I'm not talking about buying coffee. That's a great thing you can do with it, and you should do with it if it's your money. But no one needs something special to buy their coffee. What, for example, they do need is if they want to send a remittance, and if they can save like a giant chunk of that, that's a use case. And if it's easy.
Yeah, I admit, I'm going to Australia in a couple days, and my audio guy I'm hiring required a deposit. He's in Australia, and those fees, man, were like $40 to wire international. I'm just like, please just let me send you Bitcoin.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
it's now, of course, if you find a way where he can set up like a fiat service, and then you can just send him there, so he still gets the money in his account.
Right.
Or for example, if however it works out, that would work. But you have to have compelling use cases like that. The gaming industry, both, like streaming, gaming type stuff and gambling, really need crypto. Digital ledgers, just using a transaction so you can actually look up transaction history and just have a permanent record of your finances. Then you can't have errors or hacks or things like that, and then the records get lost. Okay, some companies need supply chain management. There's really compelling use cases, but you got to start with the ones that are just the most egregious, like $80 to do a Western Union MoneyGram. Oh no. Or hey, I'm a cannabis dispensary. I'm spending 20 to 25% of my income just handling all this cash, and I don't want to be stuck up at gunpoint anymore. I'm going to implement this stuff. And stuff like that is where it has to start. And you can't just say, why don't you just pay a higher transaction fee. We hear that all the time from the maximalists, but then at the same time, a lot of times we're saying, why don't you just use crypto? It's like, oh yeah, great. That works. I'm just going to like pay my bills by like, I don't even know what to do. Like, how do I get set up? How do I buy something? I have to link a bank account to this. What about an ATM? Is there one near me? What about those fees? Oh, I sent it there. How are they going to process? How are they going to run payroll? Are they going to have to do property, capital gains? And then the technology has to work. You have to make an elegant solution so it works.
Yeah. 100% agree with you there. 100% agree with you there. Well, I think we're just about at an hour, so I think we'll wrap it up here. If anybody has some questions, I see chat's kind of going. I know there's people lurking. I have 20 people watching, so yeah, I guess. Yeah, what do you want to know, boys?
Yeah. Everything. I mean, one more thing I'm gonna pimp.
Yeah.
Just because I can. So I'm gonna just pimp all my stuff. First off, if you are anywhere in the eastern U.S., close to New Hampshire, come up and do a visit. I'll show you around. I'll show you where you can spend your stuff, spend your crypto, join the crypto revolution. It's fantastic up here.
So what point of sales does like all the merchants have? Like what software?
Most 90% of them are AnyPay.
Okay, yep.
So AnyPay takes a whole bunch of different ones, and it works pretty efficiently. And so you come up and visit New Hampshire. Second, if you can't, or if you're somewhere in Europe, or if you can go to Europe, the Dash convention is the end of September. I believe it's September 28th and 29th in Zurich. There's a nice big convention thing going on there. And then on the 30th in Munich for Oktoberfest, or Dashtoberfest as it's called.
Oh, wow.
It's gonna be a great time. That whole thing. Everyone who's not just a total hater is welcome. I mean, you could, if you're a hater, you can hide it. I'm sure you can get into it. But yes, come in, see what's all been up, and of course you can buy your tickets in crypto. So, do that. Now, one of the things that this is a whole nother hours podcast kind of discussion, so I won't really go into it. But there's a info war out there. Leaving Alex Jones out of it. There is a definite information war that has started with perhaps Thamos and our Bitcoin and turned into Twitter with the Bitcoin account getting taken over, and just all over the place. There's fake news everywhere. If you want to know what's actually going on in the world of, say, Bitcoin Cash, you'd probably want to. Yeah, that's number one. But second, you'd probably want to like follow news.bitcoin.com and look at that stuff, and it can compare when you hear something completely like, wait, they said this and CoinDesk said that. You might want to compare, but at least you got to get that. If you want to know what's going on with Dash, don't read CoinDesk. Trust me, really don't read. Dashnews.org. Dash.org is the main Dash website. Dashnews.org will keep you updated. Yeah. And that also has the YouTube channel. We do a weekly podcast. Hopefully as fun as this one, but we'll see. Every Friday. And so it's on the YouTube channel there. I've interviewed a few different Bitcoin Cash people like Roger Ver for the interview section of the YouTube channel. It's great. You should do that. And my Twitter is at the Desert Links. Desert is in dry place. Links is in kitty cat, not the Desert Linux. I've had that happen before, even though I do use Linux, but whatever. And follow me there on Twitter and all the other. It's the same on all. My first and last name or that handle is how you'll find me just about anywhere. And feel free to just talk to me about random stuff. As long as you don't spam me too much or go scam. just whatever.
Instamine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like an information war out there. That's kind of like part of the reason I started this show, is just like to project the voice of a voice of reason. I feel like I'm reasonable myself into this void of people shouting scam, like you said, and just a bunch of bullshit floating around everywhere, and people just falling into the maxi pad line of thought because it's convenient and the popular thing to do. And so yeah.
And it's been crazy because I know a lot of people who've lived off of peer-to-peer electronic cash who when the blocks filled up, they started to like change this thing, and like they knew like Roger Ver, he's friends with a lot of people here in New Hampshire, or especially was back in the day. And then over time, he just became the scammer, and over time, they're just like, well, but sort of. Eventually, people I thought were like cool, smart, intelligent people who were like on the front lines with me just started to like shift, and now it's like I don't even know you anymore. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's there, the war is there. Just pay attention. That's all I'm saying. Pay attention to everything and think critically, and watch Calling It Like It Is.
My guy. All right, thank you. How are you saying it? Joelle, was it?
Yes,
Joelle.
2-syllable.
Joelle, gotcha. Well, thank you, Joelle, for coming on. Coming on my show. I appreciate it very much. And I think I'll stream for a little bit afterwards myself. But again, thank you for coming on. It was a great little chat. Learned a little bit more about Dash. And the rating just went up by 10% with them.
Stay dashy, folks.
Sal just said in the comments, crypto commies.
Haha. Well, it's okay.
Yeah, everybody pool your crypto. Yeah, Dash is the communist coin. Yeah, that's what I heard too.
Yeah, there's a lot of big words out there. It's hard to keep track of what they all mean. So communism is a long one. So what can I do?
All right. Thanks, Joel.
Yep. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.